What's up, Taiwan? I'm Yvonne Yang with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's plan to turn its back on nuclear energy may have hit a roadblock. The government is being warned that to hit its clean energy goals, nuclear reactors may have to stay. Lawmakers are now considering new reactor technology, but as John Venturias explains, the tech has its limitations.
For 8 years, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, has pushed for Taiwan to say goodbye to nuclear power. Its goal for what it calls a nuclear-free homeland was originally set for 2025. But less than 2 months to go until that deadline, there's still one active plant, and signs of a rethink about how practical ditching nuclear power might be, with fossil fuels as the main alternative. One of the latest of these signs came in an exchange at the legislature Monday. The head of Taiwan's Academia Sinica, a top research institute, who also helps lead Taiwan's climate change committee, said a possible U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord would be a blow to the goal of a carbon-neutral world by 2050. He said other countries will need to respond, and that means getting all the clean energy possible.
近年我们没有放弃任何干净能源的本钱。
您当时有说要利用新科技提升核能安全性，或补强位于地震带的核电厂。我想这一些言论是否代表您对于国家能源的发展是不排除核电的？
从技术上来讲，这些是可行的。
是可行的，所以您不排除？
是的。
The head of a prominent business association says the economy minister has made similar remarks in private.
新能源的问题，我是跟郭部长交流，他认为台湾必须要用新核能来取代，才能解套很多问题，才能把电费降低。刚刚郭部长我有跟他私底下交流，他认为这些问题可以解决的，他有信心。我对这个郭部长的思维我也认可。
But what officials are calling new nuclear power has its limitations. Daniel Chen, who's pursuing a doctorate in nuclear energy, says that while reactors made with new tech are thought to be cheaper, they don't solve the problems that sparked debate about nuclear power to begin with, especially waste. While they were touted as being able to run on recycled fuel, security concerns mean that early promise hasn't amounted to anything.
The technology that is used to separate out the plutonium from the spent fuel to be used in new fuel can also be used to separate out the plutonium to be used in nuclear weapons, at least in principle. And so a lot of the so-called Generation 4 reactors that had this feature kind of got eliminated.
Still, the business community sees cheap, clean energy, old or new, as key to Taiwan's continued competitiveness. And so pressure on the government to change course isn't going away. Whether the ruling DPP is willing to do an about-face on its earlier nuclear-free campaign is another matter entirely. Ethan Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has reportedly tapped several people for top jobs in the incoming administration. Among them are Florida Congressman Mike Waltz as National Security Advisor and Florida Senator Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. Both are seen as China hawks who support military aid to Taiwan. And to learn about how Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te might approach the incoming Trump administration, Alec McDonald spoke with Wei Ting-Yan, a research fellow at Academia Sinica.
What policy priorities might President Lai make with the incoming President-elect Donald Trump administration?
I think the Lai administration will have to have a different strategy moving forward because in the past 8 years under Tsai Ing-wen's administration, especially after 2020, we know she has been advocating for the importance of Taiwan through the lens of chips, but also the democracy, the value of democracy. And so, but we know the new Trump administration is not very value focused. So promoting Taiwan as a democracy might not be as effective diplomatically to the new administration. And so I think for the Lai administration, they will continue working with the U.S. on the security front, as well as making partnership in other aspects.
So if the U.S. and Taiwan do need to find additional values, what sort of priorities might the Lai administration set, and what kind of cautions should they take?
So I think the most important kind of consensus that every party in this triangular relationship will agree is that maintaining peace and stability across strait is important. No one wants a war, and U.S. does not want another war right now in the world. And so I think that should be a key message moving forward, which means that Taiwan will want to welcome more substantive support on cooperation, military training, on getting more weapons, getting the weapons we already paid for, instead of having some lip service to support Taiwan publicly, which may unnecessarily escalate the cross-strait relation while Taiwan is not getting any benefits substantively. I think that is the area we want to avoid.
So how then might President Lai maintain Taiwan's security priorities while also cooperating with the United States?
On the security front, I think it is important to continue all the cooperation Taiwan already has with the U.S. and making sure that we can continue having that cooperation quietly moving forward. I do have one concern, which is that under the Trump administration, it's becoming more uncertain. One reason is Trump himself is a more uncertain leader. The second reason is because this is his second term. So we're going to see intra-party competition emerging very soon. And so Taiwan should be very cautious to be caught up in the intra-party competition and to be cautious that the possibility that some Republican politicians in the fight against China may jeopardize Taiwan's interest.
Now that was Wei-Ting Yan, a research fellow at Academia Sinica. The United Nations Annual Climate Summit is beginning in Azerbaijan. Leaders and experts from around the world have arrived to address and reduce the impacts of global warming. It comes after Donald Trump's U.S. election win, increasing fears the president-elect could backtrack on climate progress. Rosie Greninger reports.
Thank you.
World leaders, negotiators and climate experts fill a hall in Azerbaijan's capital, Baku, as the UN's annual climate summit, COP29, gets underway. Looking to tackle the escalating climate crisis, some progress was made on the first day. Attendees backing a carbon credit system proposal that would see countries and companies pay for emission-reducing projects in return for credits to offset their own. The deal has been years in the making, part of the 2015 Paris Agreement, which seeks to keep global temperatures at 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. An important step, as the summit's president warns the world is on the road to ruins.
Climate change is already here. From flooded homes in Spain to forest fires in Australia, from rising oceans in the Pacific to barren plains in East Africa. Whether you see them or not, people are suffering in the shadows. They are dying in the dark, and they need more than compassion, more than prayers and paperwork.
This 29th summit aims to chart what its leader calls a new path forward. The main goal of this year's meeting is increasing funding to curb the rise in global temperatures and support lower-income countries to reduce greenhouse gases. It's a goal being met with skepticism by climate activists who question the choice of Azerbaijan as host, given its poor climate record. Despite this, attendees hope to secure a deal for up to $1 trillion in annual climate funding for developing countries, a major hike from the current $100 billion pact. For those nations, this goal represents survival, facing severe climate disasters, including floods, landslides and bushfires that have increased by 700% in the past decade.
They're always saying, the potential risk of climate change, like we haven't been facing it as small islands for the last 30 years. So it's about looking at it's right here, it's right now. It's no longer a latent emergency.
conference has been clouded by the US election, with many countries concerned Donald Trump's presidency victory could hinder climate progress. The president-elect has promised to roll back climate measures, walk out of the landmark Paris Agreement for a second time, and increase fossil fuel production in the US, the world's largest historic greenhouse gas emitter.
In January, we're going to inaugurate a president whose relationship to climate change is captured by the words hoax and fossil fuels. He's vowed to dismantle our environmental safeguards and once again withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement. That is what he has said, and we should believe him.
Despite Trump's threats, the US climate envoy pledged to continue climate work in the country. Over the next 2 weeks, leaders at the summit will continue to discuss ways to meet the Paris Agreement. But with this COP marking the last major talks before countries submit updated emission targets in 2025, and the world far off from the Paris Agreement's goals, the pressure is increasing. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Police in China have detained a man they say drove a car into a crowd of pedestrians before driving off, leaving at least 35 people dead and dozens wounded. A video posted on social media showed chaotic scenes outside a sports center in the city of Zhuhai. Bystanders gathered around the injured people as police officers arrived at the scene. Authorities say the suspect is a 62-year-old man surnamed Fan. Police have not provided a motive for the attack. A museum in New Taipei has unveiled a special exhibit on Taiwan's authoritarian past. By telling the human stories behind the White Terror, it hopes to reflect on one of the country's most turbulent periods. Wesley Lewis was there.
Highlighting a painful chapter in Taiwan's history, this special exhibit at the National Museum of Human Rights in New Taipei is shining a light on the country's authoritarian era by showcasing real-life stories of those who suffered under the martial law regime. The opening ceremony kicked off with heartfelt performances and remarks from the exhibition organizers. Curated by some of the country's top historians, the exhibit entitled Breaking Through the Blockade showcases the stories of activists and dissidents who were blacklisted during Taiwan's period of martial law from 1949 to 1987.
I was physically deported, so at least they gave me the airplane ticket, and that was right after the Kaohsiung incident. And I was always helping the opposition with, news about who's getting arrested. And now all my friends, everybody was arrested, my husband, everybody. And I tried to inform as much as I could the news before I was thrown out.
During the 38 years of martial law here in Taiwan, blacklisted activists like Rubio were deported, while many others were jailed or tortured. It's a period historians refer to as the White Terror. Here at the exhibition, the goal is to educate Taiwanese people on this dark history.
我们要让这些历史不但存在历史里面，也存在人们的记忆里面，尤其存在新一代的记忆里面。只有更多人知道、认识当时的历史，才会了解今天的台湾多么的可贵，多么的难得。
Since Taiwan lifted martial law in 1987, it's become one of Asia's most vibrant democracies. But the country's turbulent past wasn't that long ago, and this exhibit has set out to make sure the stories of those who suffered under authoritarian rule leave an indelible impression on visitors, so that their stories of political struggle are not forgotten. Howard Zhang and Wesley Lewis in New Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more of our stories. Finally, we take a look at some original Lucky Luke illustrations by Belgian cartoonist Maurice, which are set to be auctioned in Paris. I'm Yvonne Yang. Take care, and I'll see you next time.